It is a form of Imperialdramon Dragon Mode that liberated all of its power, changing into the legendary Fighter Mode. Also, when it awakens to perfect justice, it is able to transform into an even further mode. As Imperialdramon Dragon Mode began to destroy everything in its path, as the Black Digitron created more power for it, the Knights descended upon it to try to stop it. As in the desert, Chaos Gallantmon and Omegamon began their battle to see who is stronger. As both clashed furiously, it was very apparent to Omegamon that Chaos Gallantmon was actually a worthy opponent, and was very surprised that it hadn't been fighting at its full potential since it arrived, as it could have easily taken the Knights on head-on, and probably defeated them in the process. As Omegamon began to give everything, as Gorgon's shield was used by Chaos Gallantmon to deflect missiles from Omegamon, and the resulting explosions began to surprise everyone as the battlefield would be engulfed in the flames. And even when the Supreme Cannon was used, the shockwave made a light so bright that those that were watching would not be able to see. As the internal battle between Imperialdramon and Imperialdramon began, as firing both of their positron lasers, both began to fight inside. As although this was a strange situation, it was something that had to be done. As both continued to clash, it seemed that they were somewhat evenly matched. As the Imperialdramon that finally appeared from Warmon and Vmon said to its counterpart that your terror will end. However, Imperialdramon retorted that it called them a fool, as simply, I am you. However, Imperialdramon made it clear that in order to stop its counterpart, that they will sacrifice everything. However, this simply only enraged Imperialdramon, as it would say, I hate you. As on the outside, the Knights were doing their best, however it was difficult, as Imperialdramon's lightning was keeping them at bay, and the unstable energy was something hard for them to deal with. However, in the void, as the other Imperialdramon punched its counterpart, something happened on the outside. All of a sudden, the lightning shifted to a different direction. As the Knights descended to a lower level of the volcano, they realized something was wrong, as Imperialdramon's attacks simply went in a different direction. And on the inside, as another punch was delivered to Imperialdramon, its energy once again went to a specific direction. As Leopardmon realized something was going on, as it noticed that Imperialdramon isn't really controlling its energy burst, as its focus must be elsewhere. And Leopardmon, being the crafty Digimon that it is, decided, and it knew that it had a plan in order to stop it once and for all. As we would return to the desert, we would be surprised, as the battle between Omegamon and Chaos Gallantmon had finally concluded, with Chaos Gallantmon's back touching the ground, and Omegamon standing over it. As, although this battle was somewhat intense, but very short, Chaos Gallantmon had submitted, seeing no point in continuing the fight further, as it would eventually rise to its feet, and it would explain everything to Omegamon, which would learn a lot about what was happening in its absence. Inside, the battle between both the Imperialdramons was reaching its pinnacle, as a shockwave on the inside that if it happened in the outer world would have surprised everyone was tremendous, as the fury between both of them is felt. However, seizing this opportunity to try to end this battle once and for all, Imperialdramon tackled its newly formed counterpart to the ground, as it wanted to finish it off, as to it was the inferior copy, because its existence just came, as it had been alive this whole time, doing what it could to keep them alive. But as it approached, the newly formed Imperialdramon simply said, I'm sorry. As to Imperialdramon, this was a surprise, as it apologizing acknowledged the fact that its existence was simply based on what happened because it did not take its own form. And for some reason, Imperialdramon actually backed off from its counterpart on the ground, as I think the words had gotten too much to it. However, on the outside, while this was going on, because of the loss of focus, the knights sprung into action. As they divided up their plan, they knew what they needed to do. As they began to rush the ring of energy, seeing that if they were able to disrupt it somehow, there could be a chance to take Imperialdramon out of the ring. As this began, the knights strategically attacked parts of the ring, as they realized that it was the least guarded. As they bone rushed it, all Force Digimon tried slashing through, while all of them placed their swords in different areas, essentially trying to pop it like a bubble. However, it was Leopardmon that surprised everyone, as it changed into its leopard mode and charged the bubble head on. As the ring that was formed effectively was unable to manifest its energy in multiple places, unless focused completely, and because Imperialdramon was unable to focus, they were able to push, and eventually they broke through. As the ring exploded around it, pushing them back slightly, they realized that this was their opportunity, as unfortunately for Imperialdramon, it had no way to escape because with the ring disrupted, its own energy was now pooled all over the place. And the four knights assaulted it head on, charging in. As they all delivered wicked blows to Imperialdramon, it felt that, and it was knocked away. As it went flying away from the pool of Black Digitron, it came back to the desert where it would eventually crash. However, on the inside, Imperialdramon took this chance, noticing that its dark counterpart was distracted with the injuries he was taking on the outside, and it grabbed it, holding it back and not allowing it to move freely. As Imperialdramon continued to fly out in the distance in the desert, all four Digimon appeared on top of it, realizing that this was the time to strike. As the combination attack by the knights would begin, as all Force took its advantage and slashed. As Lord Nightmon did something similar, following up with its slash, and Craniumon, who wanted to get revenge from earlier, did its specific waltz dueling slash, cutting across Imperialdramon. And finally, Leopard Mode arrived as it charged in and tackled Imperialdramon forward, before changing back into its normal Knight Leopard Mode and delivering the final strike. However, because of the weakened state Imperialdramon was in, this was enough to cause a massive disruption in its body, as massive cracks and black energy emerged, as the final strike had done enough, as it began to pour out of Imperialdramon. However, on the inside, Imperialdramon was able to once again force its counterpart off of it by trying to release all the remaining energy it had on the inside. But on the outside, it was a dire situation, as it knew that it couldn't sustain this for long. So it made a threat that it would take all of the knights with it, essentially threatening that it would destroy itself if they came any closer. And with the amount of energy it possessed, and with the cracks on its body, emitting that much energy could destroy everything. However, this was merely a bluff, as Imperialdramon itself needed its energy to kind of close the wounds it had taken, and unless it got to the Black Digitron, this would be its ultimate fate. As to the surprise of the other knights, Chaos Gallantmon descended in front of Imperialdramon, looking as almost to aid it. As Imperialdramon would laugh, it knew that this was the best opportunity, so it would turn around to laugh and gloat, as it had one more ally that would basically allow it to heal up. As this continued, Imperialdramon was slowly trying to fix its wounds, as its body somewhat began to drain back the energy it was emitting so that it could fix the injuries. As it gloated on the inside to the new Imperialdramon that its failure was a result of the fact that it couldn't take action, and that because it was so weak, it had to step in and be the power that they always wanted. So in doing so, it was not needed. Its existence was a waste, as compassion and love is something that it threw away a long time ago. And as it was about to finish off the new Imperialdramon, a massive hole appeared. A black void that had not been seen ever began to appear in its chest, where its head would be. As Imperialdramon grabbed the hole, and it didn't understand what was happening. However, when we go back to the outside, we could see what happened. Not expecting it, Chaos Gallantmon ran its massive sword straight through its chest, shocking Imperialdramon, as it did not expect it from the outside. So on the inside, its focus was completely taken up, as the massive hole that began to appear was a result of too much damage, and Chaos Gallantmon simply opened it up. As on the inside, Imperialdramon began to fade, as its existence was falling apart, as the new Imperialdramon began to take over as the dominant mindset. As the black hole was starting to disappear, Imperialdramon grabbed it. It began to absorb it, as the Imperialdramon that we knew finally disappeared on the inside. And on the outside, something beyond strange was happening. As it began to try to roar itself, it was in suffering pain. However, as once again, Omegamon had dropped its transcendent sword, it plunged it into the hole, as to essentially see if it could finish off Imperialdramon once and for all. Imperialdramon struggled, as the damage was insane, as it hurt. However, shockingly, it burst off Omegamon as it began to float into the air, as it was unable to sustain the energy that it was losing. And in this case, it needed to get out of here. As it jumped into the sky, the black ring finally appeared around it again, almost as if it was trying to reform once again. However, on the inside, the new Imperialdramon would tell the old one that you will always be a part of me. And on the outside, the light of evolution shined once more. But unlike the last time, this did not feel malicious, as no dark intent was felt across the battlefield. And when the light would dissipate, the ring would still exist, but on the inside, Imperialdramon had changed. Its features are different. The light was different. The head had changed from the menacing black to a red and white. Its wings were a vibrant red. And the black armor now, although still dark, did not have the same hue of anger and rage that they had possessed before. And as Omegamon ascended up, it would greet the new Imperialdramon, as it wasn't sure exactly what had happened. Not sure if it was going to continue fighting, or not sure if it was going to actually surrender. It prepared, as essentially Imperialdramon would look at Omegamon and tell it thank you as it fell. As it began to plummet from the sky, it fell with a smile. It's something that it wasn't able to do in so long began, as Imperialdramon would eventually revert into Imperialdramon, a form it had not taken in so long, as it began to continue to flicker out. And as Imperialdramon split, 2 rookie Digimon were finally deposited, as Wormmon and Vmon fell from its body. And both of them eventually would crash into the desert area, as they hadn't been outside of their combined body in what had been centuries to it. As all the knights began to rally around it, the 2 rookie Digimon laid there, unconscious, not knowing of what their fate would be. As the Knight Digimon gathered around them, a new beginning would take place. And unfortunately for the Dark Forces, Imperialdramon was gone. However, you'll have to see what happens next in the next part. If you're to learn anything from this part, is that the internal heart of our bodies beat. So if we do evil, there is still some good in us, regardless of what we believe. The ability to do evil is something that's not actually hard to do for most people. But for beings that are unable to understand what good and evil are, a being of pure evil doesn't necessarily exist. However, a being of neglected generosity can. And if we don't show love to others and care for others, there's a good chance that they won't show it in the future either. To take a big lesson from this with Imperialdramon, the Reign of Terror began due to the unwillingness of others to help. And the Reign of Terror ended because those that wanted to help saw that it was their only chance to stop evil. Now, this is Brad from the Ed Army signing off. And for all of you out there to sign on.